Everybody, and welcome to your next AllegroHD tutorial. Um so now we've learned a lot in our past few videos. We've learned like some keyboard input, learned how to regulate frames per second, learned a little bit of timers and such, learned how to close the game window, and we learned how to create players and animate our players. But there's still a lot of things that are actually indeed missing in order to have a full complete game. Some of those things are like sounds, menus, learning how to do screen state, etc., etc. But for now, we're gonna be just diving into the worlds of loading sounds and music into your game. You might not think sounds and music aren't important, but they actually indeed set the mood of your game. One big reason why Final Fantasy VII was such a big success was because the overall gameplay was good, but the overall background music and stuff really contributed to it. Like I remember back in the day, there was around the same time as Final Fantasy VII, there was this game that came out called Legend of Dragoon, and that is still one of my favorite games today for the PlayStation 1. If you haven't played it, then I suggest you check it out. But overall, still Final Fantasy is still considered an overall better game because it had the combination, it had all the elements put together to make an amazing RPG, right? Although Legend of Dragoon had a lot of good elements, it never had all the elements needed for a complete good RPG series. So that's why Final Fantasy was such a big success. So one of the elements is to put in is sound. Now it's up to you whether you want to implement this into your game, but this is probably one of the last things that you'll implement in your game, but I strongly recommend that you have music in your game if you want it to appeal to your audience. Any type of music, and it will capture the attention of your audience. So anyways, enough of my speech about video games. Let's get right into the code, because that is why you guys are here. So there's many different music types. There's MP3, there's Wav, there's AllegroHD files, Midi files, all those different types of files. And you can probably load them into Allegro loading external libraries, but I'm only teaching Allegro default settings here. So if you want to use additional libraries, you have to learn those by yourself, or if I make them in future tutorials. Anyways, the only two file types supported by Allegro 4 is Wav files and Midi files. Wav files are generally going to be used for like certain like sound effects, like say you want your character to jump and you have a jump sound effect or something like that. That's what Wav files would generally be. The reason being for this is that Wav files are uncompressed file formats, meaning that they're normally larger, right? So you want to keep them, you want Wav files to be the shorter files so that they're not that long and they don't take up too much space. The longer that sound plays, then the more space that it takes up in memory, because it's a greater amount of kilobytes or megabytes or whatever, and it'll take up too much space and therefore in turn slow down the computer or slow down the application that you're trying to run. So Wav files, use those just for sound effects if you can, and use Midi files for background music. If you can't like create or find any Midi files, then you can always do it with Wav files, but it's recommended you load the song files with Midi files. So let's get into how we load Wav files. So just like how we loaded images, there's a class called sample, and sample is what you will use to load waves. So much like the same way we loaded the player and stuff, put sample, put the asterisk, meaning that it's a pointer. So we're pointing to the variable name my sample. So I named it my sample. It's equal to load underscore sample, and we're loading this sound, sample sound dot wave. Now I don't in fact actually have a sound loaded in the folder, I'm just doing this here as a demonstration because you won't be able to hear the music in my video anyways. So this is where we load from is the same default directory where we saved our sprites, and where we saved where we save everything else is where you will put your WAV files and your Midi files. So we loaded the WAV file here. To load Midi files is simple. It's called Midi instead of sample. It's called Midi asterisk. We name it whatever we want it to name, whoever we want it to be named. We put load underscore Midi, and I put sample music.mid because that's the file format for Midis. Simple enough. Now let's scroll down, and if you're wondering, this is the same code as last tutorial, just adding in some sound. So right now as a demo, I said no, actually let's go up right here. So right here, when you put there's many different functions. There's, I think, play and stop functions, but right now I'm going to show you how to play the Midi. So it says play underscore Midi, and it only has two things in the parameter: what Midi you want to play, and if you want to loop it or not. So when it reaches the end of the song, do you want to loop it again or do you not want to loop it? So in this program, it will continuously play the same song over and over until we set a command to stop it. And I believe this command is stop Midi, and what you would do is put that. You don't specify the Midi you want to stop, it will stop all Midis playing. Because in reality, it will think that you're only playing one Midi at a time, since you'll only be playing one background song at a time. So anyways, let's go down to playing actual samples or WAV files or sound effects in your game. So what we do is put play underscore sample, and what you'll see is that it has a lot more parameters in it. So let us take a look at what these parameters have in them. The first one is asking for which sample or which WAV file we want to play. So we created the one my sample. Then it asks for the volume. This ranges from 0 to 255, with 255 being the loudest volume and 0 being the lowest volume. And you can really take advantage of this. Say you have an options menu and you have a variable called volume, then you could have the user adjust the volume of the samples that are playing, so then they can make the sound effects lower or higher according to what settings they chose. But right now we set it to maximum volume. Now the panning is if you're in if you've noticed, your speakers have left and right they have left and right speakers, right? And basically the panning is to see how much sound comes out of the right speaker, how much comes out of the left speaker. If you put in to value like 127, which is nearly in the middle, then this will play at a volume that will play equally between both the left and the right speakers, which generally you will most likely want in your programs. And if you're into music, then you will understand more what I'm talking about. I do music and stuff, and it's pretty, I could go in depth into it, but this is not the point of this tutorial. So anyways, if you want equal sound, then put 127. So the last two parameters, this one stands for frequency, and it's how fast you would like to play the song. For normal frequency, you would put 1000. That's the normal frequency. That's what you'll be using for most of the time. If you want to play faster, you put a higher value. If you want to play it like at half the speed, you would put 500. And the last one is if you want to loop the sound effect. Most times this will be false if it is a sound effect. But if you're doing other sound effects that you may want to loop, then you can loop it if you would like. And if you for some reason want to stop the sample while it's playing, then you could always use the function stop sample, and then you put in the sample name, and then we'll stop the sample from playing. And just like bitmaps, we have to destroy the samples and the Midi. So we put destroy underscore sample, and we destroy our sample name, and we have destroy underscore Midi, and we destroy the Midi file. Now I believe there's a website called Video Game Music or something, where you can download a lot of music from video games and such. So if you want to use those, like, download them, don't copyright them, don't use them as your own. But if you want to download some of those game sounds or like background music to test in your Allegro game, then by all means you can. But I won't show it in here because I don't want to like violate some of YouTube's copyright laws or anything. So anyways, thanks for watching this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed this, and bye.